All right, let's get started. So, first of all, welcome to everybody. Thank you for spending time with us. Thank you for joining us. This is the latest in our Flow Conversations series, and today's session is all about our latest Flow 5.4 release, which will be coming out at the end of the month. We're going to be discussing a couple of things today. I'd like to just start off with a bit of an introduction, and then I'm going to hand over to Vaughan and Lenny. We're going to talk a little bit about enablement and support, what's coming next, and then open up the floor for a few questions and answers. Quick introduction to our panelists. My name is Graham Welton. I have Vaughan Rampasat, our product manager, and Lenny Smith, our customer success manager, who will be doing most of the talking today. By way of introduction, I'd like to just take a few of the newer users, the new people who are new to Flow, who possibly don't know Flow very well. I'm going to take you through a little bit of an introduction. For those of you who already know Flow, please bear with us. And for those of you who are new to Flow, please contact us, get our details off our website. If this introduction just whets your appetite, then get hold of us and we can set up a proper session to introduce you to Flow and to do a full demo of existing functionality as well as the new functionality that we're going to be talking about today. So, a little bit about what Flow is. Well, in part, Flow is the presentation of information to decision makers by way of these easily configurable dashboards, messages, etc. But what people don't realize is that Flow is so much more than just the pretty dashboards. Flow is really about data and information management. And that's why we talk about Flow as being an information management platform, specifically designed for the industrial information management workplace. So what does Flow do? Well, Flow effectively extracts and transforms data from multiple data sources. And those data sources could be OT type data sources like historians, IT data sources like SQL databases, for example, IoT platforms, and of course, manual entry of data into the Flow system. What we do is we take that data from these multiple data sources and we contextualize it into a single operational data store. We call it the ODS. And we can think of that as being our single version of the truth, from where all information, all KPIs, etc., are shared. So let's talk about a few examples. Most implementations of Flow use it for Kpi tracking, but this can include many different things, including production, downtime, plans, actuals, usages, costs. Pretty much anything that you can track over time has a place as a KPI inside the Flow information platform. So you can actually think of Flow as being an integration bridge between OT systems and your typical IT or business systems. So for example, think of it as a bridge between your historian data, which is high resolution time series data, and your business systems, maybe a business intelligence tool like Tableau or ClickView or even Power BI. And possibly other business systems like your ERP systems, potentially your machine learning systems in the cloud, for example. So there are many use cases where the information within Flow can actually be shared not only to people through the dashboards and charts, but also to other systems. And ultimately what we are trying to achieve here, what we are trying to sell, is decision support, the ability for people to make better decisions, better quality decisions more frequently through the dashboarding, the notification, and the collaboration components that Flow provides them. Okay, so where is Flow used? Well, Flow is actually quite a generic tool and has been used throughout a number of different industry verticals: food and beverage, oil and gas, healthcare, utilities and renewables, water and wastewater, mining, and mineral processing. And the reason I bring this up is because, first of all, I want you to understand that Flow is a generic tool. It can be configured to suit your industry, but also to say that Flow has got fantastic traction throughout these different types of industry verticals. We also have a little bit of news to share with you today, and that is that we have recently joined the Eclipse Foundation, and more specifically, the Sparkplug Working Group, which does a lot of amazing work around the MQTT protocol. And the reason we've joined them is that our philosophy of being an open platform, being open to multiple data sources being extracted into Flow, as well as multiple data consumers of the Flow information, this openness, this open philosophy sits very well within the philosophy of the Eclipse Foundation, and specifically the Sparkplug Working Group, where we have recently, you may know, we've recently incorporated MQTT with the Sparkplug B protocol or payload definition into Flow. All right, so what I'd like to do is take you through a little bit of how Flow fits into the bigger picture. So in the center here, we have the Flow Information Platform. And at its center, we have what I referred to as our ODS, our Operational Data Store. Now, the first thing that we have to do when we start configuring a Flow Information Platform is we need to configure where Flow is going to start collecting data from. And there can be numerous data sources that Flow collects data from for each instance of Flow. Let's talk about historians. This is the first typical OT type data source that Flow would connect into. So historians like the Canary Historian, Ignition Historian, OSI Pi, and any OPC HDA compliant historian. We also connect to various flavors of SQL, so Microsoft SQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL, as well as Oracle. Even NoSQL data sources. So for example, we're seeing a huge uptake of a data store, a NoSQL data source called InfluxDB, which you may have heard of. And as of version 5.4, we're going to be able to connect into InfluxDB. Various cloud platforms, IoT platforms, you can connect to those. If they provide a RESTful API, Flow will be able to connect into them. So some examples would be AWS TimeStream or the Azure IoT platform. So you could push your data into these IoT platforms or these cloud solutions, and you could actually connect your Flow system to them. And lastly, a very powerful one, of course, is the ability for Flow to get data entered manually. And this is served via a browser. It has the same kind of look and feel as a spreadsheet. So conversion of data capturers from a spreadsheet capturing system directly into getting Flow into the Flow system through Flow Forms is an easy transition and a very powerful way to get data directly into the Flow system so it is available for subsequent calculations and KPI expressions. And that leads me into step 2. Flow has an extremely powerful calculation engine. We call it our Kpi Calculation Engine. So as data is coming into Flow from these multiple data sources or manually entered, you can configure calculations that then take that data, potentially from different data sources, perform a calculation and store the result back into the Flow system. So the kinds of calculations that Flow can do, things like roll-ups, for example, from a minutely time period to an hourly time period, to a shift, to a day, to a week, for example. Even cumulative roll-ups, so maybe you want a shift-to-date number, or you want a day-to-date, or a week-to-date, or even a month-to-date number for your executives. Potentially a moving window, so maybe give me the average over the last 8 hours, for example, as a KPI that you might be wanting to track. And then, of course, you can do standard calculations, the kind of calculations that you would typically do in a spreadsheet. So take a KPI from one of your historians and create a calculation with it and a KPI from one of your SQL data stores. So you can do these bridging or cross data source calculations and store the results into the Flow system. Great, so now what do we do with all of this information? Well, the first mechanism is to share that information through our visualization component, and that is the charting and dashboarding that I showed you a little bit earlier. The charting and dashboarding is presented again through browsers. It's HTML5. It can be presented on big screens. It can be presented via projector in your meeting rooms. A lot of our customers use these dashboards to run their meetings. Or you can consume it on your laptops or your devices. So various mechanisms to visualize this information that now sits in the Flow information platform. We also have our notification and collaboration component. This allows you to create messages that compile bits and pieces of that information together and send it out as a message via email or SMS or Slack or our Flow mobile app. And you can even attach dashboards or charts to these messages. And the nice thing about these things is, depending on the channel, so say for example if it's in Slack or the Flow mobile app, you can actually collaborate with your colleagues within the channel that you are now receiving information from the Flow system. So it brings not only the system information, but also the people information together in that collaborative form. Okay, and then our last component is what we call our integration. And this allows us to share the Flow information, the same information, the single version of the truth that's been presented on the visualization layer and the notification and collaboration layer. That same information can be shared out to other systems, to other machines. So let's use an example of SQL. So you might want to push some information from Flow out to another SQL database, maybe a legacy reporting database, maybe a data mart or data lake that you're doing BI reporting on. Flow can be the source of some of the information that ends up in that data mart or that data lake. Another example potentially could be your ERP system. So maybe pushing out your production actuals back to your ERP system. Potentially pushing out information relating to valve counts, stroke counts, or machine running hours, or motor or pump running hours. Information that can then be used for within your maintenance system to kick off some kind of preventative maintenance schedule, for example. And now another good use case is being able to push this information out to a cloud system, for example. Maybe you have a machine learning platform in AWS or Azure or Google that you want to push information out to these platforms for training of your machine learning models, for example. So there's an interesting use case that you could explore. Another one is to push Flow information back to your operator workstations, and you can make use of MQTT for this. as our collaboration with Eclipse and the Sparkplug B or the Sparkplug working group, Flow has this MQTT flow consumer that you can integrate flow information out and push flow information to a MQTT broker in the form of this unified namespace, which can then be subscribed to potentially by your Ignition SCADA system, or maybe your Canary Historian system. Push the data back to the operators where they can use it on their SCADA systems and be able to trend that information. So another interesting use case. And then the last one, which I'd like to talk about, is a tiered flow system. And this is very powerful because you can actually tier multiple flow systems on top of each other. So for example, if you're a multi-site organization and you have a fleet of manufacturing sites or industrial sites, flow system autonomously collecting and calculating KPIs for that site, well, what you can do is you can push some of that information, some of those KPIs, up to a headquarter or regional flow tier 2 system, which allows you then to gather information from multiple places and start doing benchmarking and logistics types planning across your entire fleet within that headquarter tier 2 flow system. And I think I'm going to leave it at that. I've given you a bit of an introduction, possibly a lot of information to take in, but as I said earlier, please contact us if you would like a full introduction and possibly even a demo of the full rich feature set of Flow. And now I'm going to hand back to Lenny and Vaughan. Thank you, guys. Enjoy it, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Perfect. All right. So, as I mentioned, this webinar or this conversation starter is all about our upcoming release. I've got Vaughan with me to have a little bit of our conversation. Vaughan, this is pretty much where we ended off the last conversation around what's coming in version 5.4. Welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, Lenny, thanks. It's hard to believe that 3 months have gone by since we last had this chat. But you're right, this is exactly where we left off when we did our last conversation. And I think today is all about showing our viewers what's in Flow, what's coming from what we promised.
Correct. So I'm going to demo a little bit of this live. I've got a little bit of a demo system up and running. And I'm going to go through some of these features that is obviously up and coming in our 5.4.0 release. A few of the things that we're going to talk about today is about features. And we really feel that the features that we're putting into this release it's going to make us the Joneses, right? People are going to say, yes, these are great features that will really make my implementation very quick and very fast. For people that have seen me doing demos in the past, you'll see how I build out a model using the tags in the historian, but we kind of flipped it a little bit on its head. And you'll see when I build it out tonight, it's all about templatization. I think, Vaughan, that is probably one of the biggest things that we're going to see tonight is the use of templates and a little bit of features that we probably haven't used too much in Flow, like model attributes, and really utilize those features when we build out these templates.
Yeah, Lenny, up until now, I don't think we've used model attributes so much, isn't it? I know that we can use it in some of the charts, but really a lot of work has gone into using model attributes everywhere. And you're going to show us some value as to how that's going to be used even in templates for mass instantiation and so forth.
100%. I think the biggest one for me is using those model attributes to actually try and figure out what historian tag do I actually need to link to. I think that is probably one of the biggest use cases. And definitely using that also to potentially pre-populate charts depending on different plant areas that you're in to actually add them automatically as the plant expand with different pieces of equipment. So definitely going to show you guys that. We've also included a little bit of security. So potentially there might be some sensitive information that you're calculating, especially when it is around cost. That might be sensitive how that's worked out, but you can hide that from your model with security. Then also on events, we've added a whole bunch of different event capability, especially around triggering an event from another event, and really try to make the event config as simple as easy. And then as Gray mentioned, we extended our philosophy of being able to connect to pretty much any manufacturing type of data source by including a connection to InfluxDB. All right, so I think with that, let's see new version 5.4 in action. So I'm going to switch over here to my VM. Now, what I've done for tonight is I've actually got two instances of Flow. So you'll notice that I've got two desktops on this VM. So desktop 1 is going to be my production environment, okay? And desktop 2 is where I'm actually going to go and do a whole bunch of development. All right, so when I'm in desktop 2, this is my dev system. This is something that you can develop when you're at home and you've got nothing to do. When load shedding happens and you've got some battery life on your laptop, you can actually do some development and copy and paste that into our production system. All right, so let's see how that works. So this is my development system. You'll notice I don't have a model here. All right, so this dev system purely is used for my development. I don't have a model, but I do have some reports that I've already developed. And I also have some templates here that I've developed. All right. Now, as Vaughan mentioned, we added the capability that model attributes can be introduced in my template structure. So if I open up plant as an example, I can add in a model attribute for plant. And any structure below that plant will kind of inherit that. And I can obviously add as I go through. So if I look at this boiler metric, you'll see that it inherited a few model attributes, and then I've got this equipment level already that I've added to this boiler. Right. Why is this important? So I want to use this when I mass instantiate. You'll notice that I can tell the boiler what name does it need to go and adhere from. Also using placeholders in that name when I do the mass instantiation. But the important one for me is if we look at a data source and we look at some tags in a historian. So I've got a little historian here. And in this historian, I've got a whole bunch of boilers. All right, so I've got 10 boilers here. And if I look at the naming convention of these guys, you'll notice that there's a nice prefix there, 010, 020, 030. So these tags in the historian actually has a nice convention. Now, wouldn't it be great if I can just tell equipment that I've got here, you know what, go and replace it. As you replace the total amount of boilers that I'm instantiating, go and automatically change this first part here and do my referencing for me automatically. Right, and that's pretty much what we're going to try and achieve here tonight. So I've done that already. I've created my template. So you'll notice I've got one that's going to retrieve data for pressure, the production. I've worked out a little bit of a calculation there for the efficiency. And I would like to get this now into my production environment. So I'm going to go and copy this. All right, so I'm going to copy this template structure that I've got here. And now I'm going to go to my production instance. All right. Very important that I'm not just copying and pasting within Flow, I'm actually copying and pasting between different instances. All right, so this is production. This is where I'm going to build my model. And you'll notice in production currently, I don't have any templates. I'm going to go and paste that template that I copied from production into, from development into my production environment here. All right, so you'll notice I'm going to paste. Now, there might be some differences, right? So in development, you might have connected to a different historian or a different name that you created for that historian. What we will do is we'll try and figure it out, right? So we'll say, okay, you're trying to import from a data source called the utilities historian. All right, you already have one in this system as well. So you're going to go and we're just going to go and link it. All right, so we'll try and figure out a match. If there was nothing, it will try and create one. If there was a different one, you could have obviously just selected that to do that mapping for you. All right, so I'm going to paste in here. And because obviously there's nothing there, I don't have to worry about what do I need to do if I need to rename existing objects, etc. It's going to go and create brand new objects for me. All right, so it's going to create 9 folders, 4 metrics, and 13 measures. And there we go. There is my templates that I've created from my development environment right here into my production. Cool. Release this, and now I'm actually just ready to instantiate this into my model. All right, now, when I instantiate it, I'm going to actually build out this juice factory that I've got here. So let's do just one plant. I've got a lot of plants. I've got 5 plants. This is quite a big factory. And I'm going to actually instantiate all 5 of those plants during this demo. But let's just do one and see what is actually going to happen here. So I'm going to take the plant folder, and I'm going to instantiate that to my juice factory. All right. Now, this is where the magic happens. Remember all those model attributes that I defined on the template structure. Remember, I had a model attribute for the plant. That's going to tell me what is my plant number. I've got attributes on the boiler. That's going to tell me what is my equipment number, as well as building out that unique name. So you'll notice it's going to ask me to replace the model attributes as well as those special little placeholders that we can add in the instantiation name as well.
So Lenny, where is that being used now? I mean, I can see those model attributes and placeholders, but where is it actually being used?
All right, Vaughn, let's build it out, because this preview here is going to show you exactly what it's going to do when it's going to build it out. I'm going to use the area placeholder to build out the different sections, right? The equipment placeholder, I will use the equipment placeholder to try and figure out to which boiler I need to connect to based on the prefix of the tag in the historia. The plant is going to create an individual plant name for me in here. And then the plant number and the plant prefix I'll use just to create a unique metric of type boiler, because metrics and flow has to be a unique name. Right, but let's see how's this in action. Obviously, I'm just going to do one. So the area that I'm going to build out here is, because it's Steam, it's obviously going to be my utilities area. And this guy here is being used in the reporting. All right, so it's going to create a heading for me that says utilities and then map that out. All right, equipment is for the first plant. I only have this one boiler, so that's going to be 010, right? So I'm going to type in there 010. Plant, that is going to be plant 01. That's the first plant. Plant number is going to be 01 as well. Plant prefix is just going to be a shortened version of plant. And then the boiler, it's boiler number 1. So I'm just going to give it number 1 version there. All right. Now you asked me, where is all of these things going to be being used? If I press the little preview button here, it will go and show me exactly what it's going to do. So I'm going to take plant, and it's going to change the name of this plant folder from my templates. If I go back to my templates, that name there is now going to be replaced with plant. Utilities from the area, and there we go. There is the unique name for the boiler. So I'm taking the plant prefix, adding the word boiler, and then adding the boiler number to it. And it will just show me what measures will it create after the fact. All right, so I'm only going to do this one, and I'm happy with the preview. If I press continue here, it's going to go and instantiate it. So you'll notice now I've got one nice plant instantiated that's ready for me to be deployed, and the Flow engine will do its thing in the backend. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build a report out of this. Okay, so you'll notice that currently I've got some reports, but I don't have any production reports in my production environment. Again, I'm going to go back to development. So I'm going to go back to my development instance. Right, and in my development instance, I already created a nice production structure for my reporting. I've created a little bit of a boiler overview dashboard. And what I would like to know is, what is the efficiency comparison between the different plant boilers, as well as just a normal table report of the production of that. All right, so I'm going to open this up, and I am going to go and add some column headers here for me. Now, Vaughn, this is something that we've added in, and that is the ability to now use those model attributes as part of the column headers. all right? Because I want to go and compare the efficiency for the different plants that I have in my environment. So I'm going to go to those attributes there, and I'm actually going to take the plant attributes, because it's going to be plant 1, plant 2, plant 3, plant 4, plant 5, and I want it to automatically repeat the column based on those plants. So I'm going to drag that plant attribute there from my model attributes. All right.
So Lenny, up until now, if I wanted to compare these 5 plants side by side, I'd have to drag that in 5 times, wouldn't I?
Correct. That's in the old behavior. And obviously, you'll notice I don't even have a model in this instance, right? So there's no way that I could have done that because I don't have the 5 instances already created.
Yeah.
Right. But preaching the template first philosophy, I'm doing this all from my templates. Okay.
Nice.
All right. So let's go back to the template. Obviously, a plant might also have more than one boiler, correct? So
Definitely.
I want to also duplicate the columns based on the amount of boilers that I have. So I can take this boiler metric and I can also add that from my template. Okay. And then obviously in the section, what do I want to show? Well, obviously I would like to show a row of the efficiency, right? So I want to compare the efficiencies with one another. And all I have to do now is link that to my efficiency metric in the template. And there we go. Cool.
Okay, so this is the first time we've been able to drag templates into a chart, isn't it?
Correct.
Up until now, it was only normal model measures.
Correct. So up until now, you first had to build pretty much your entire model and then drag the individual measures or metrics onto the reporting. Again, we templatized the reporting. So now we can actually take a template and build a report based on whatever is being instantiated from a template perspective. We've included this feature to some of our other charting capability as well. The one that I've got here is just a plain, simple, normal table report, the one that we all know. And in this case, I'm going to do exactly the same. In the past, if you guys see me do this video, I always take the boiler and I drag it from the model. In this case, I'm going to take the metric from the template and I'm going to add that to the section. Okay. Now I can also decide which of these do I want to show in the report. And again, I'm going to add these 3 measures into the report as well. Cool. And that's it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this into my production system. So again, we've added the copy paste capability now for reports. So I'm going to take this utility section here. I'm going to copy it. And now I'm going to go back to production, right? Desktop number 1. And in my reporting here, I'm going to paste that right there in that section. All right. Again, if there was some reports already in this folder, what do you want to do with it? Do you want to rename it? Do you want to skip it? Do you want to update that existing one? We give you that opportunity to do that. Obviously, for now, I'm just going to paste it and it's going to go and create those reports right there for me. Cool. So that's it. Now, I can now physically go to my front end here. So this is obviously the front end that serves all the Flow dashboards. And currently, you'll notice if I hover over production, there's nothing, right? Because I've just copied and pasted that into my folder structure. So let's give this guy a refresh. Let's open up that dashboard. And there we go. There's the dashboard with the efficiency and all the values already created without me even having to touch the model. It will go and look in the model. How many have I instantiated? Currently, I've only instantiated plant number 1 with the boiler efficiency. And that is what you see will be built out in the report. Cool. Right. So Vaughan, let's build the rest of them.
Yeah, please, Lenny. Yeah, I must say I can see this is heading somewhere good. But up until now, what you've shown me is what I could do with Flow 5.3 in terms of creating one chart with one boiler. So show us some magic.
All right. Let's instantiate this plant level again. All right. So I'm going to take the plant again. I'm going to drag it over the factory part here. All right, it's going to give me the same kind of replacement that I had with depending on the placeholders and the model attributes. All right, area, stage, utilities, right? All right, but now there's a difference here. I'm not going to instantiate one, Vaughan. I'm going to instantiate all of the rest of them, all 4 of them in one go.
Okay.
All right, so let's have a look at the tags in the historian. So boiler 2 is 020, boiler 3 is 030, boiler 4 is 040. Okay, so I want to go, I've already created number 1, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go from 20 to 50 in the boiler number.
Okay.
So what I'm going to tell Flow to do is when you instantiate these things, start at 20, end up at 50, and step it by 10. All right, so it will go increments from 10. So it will go 20, then 30, then 40, and then 50. But you'll
What
notice
about 020? How do you get that to work?
100%. So obviously that's 3 digits. So in the format here, I can add the padding. So I can say, you know what, just do it with 3 letters in the formatting.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Plant, obviously I need to now change it from plant 01. It needs to automatically change to plant 02, 03, 04, 05. All right. Now we went a bit overboard here, but I can actually add my own placeholders even here while I am doing the instantiation. So I can add a dynamic placeholder in here. And when I do that, I can actually go and add a pattern for that placeholder. So again, I can go from 2 to 5, and I'm going to step 1, and I can go and add the 2 paddings here. Now, because I'm going 2, 3, 4, 5, I technically didn't have to specify the step number, right? So if I take away the -1, it will just assume that you're going to step one by one. All right, so I'm going to do that in the subsequent one. All right, plant number, all right, let's do that. That's going to go from 2 to 5, right? And that's going to have 2 padding. The plant prefix, that is going to be PL, all right? So remember, that's the unique name for the boiler on the metric level. And I could have done 2 things here. I could have either introduced, again, a placeholder, a dynamic placeholder, or what I can do is I can just go 2 to 5, and then in the format, just prefix it with PL00. Okay. And then the boiler number, again, that's going to go also from 2 to 5, and it's going to have 2 zeros. All right. Now, this might look very confusing when you're doing it the first time or seeing it the first time, and that is exactly why we added in the preview button, so that I can actually see what's going to happen here. So I'm going to click on the preview button here, and this is exactly what it's going to do. It's going to create 5 plants for me. If I expand plants, it's going to go and add the plant prefix to the boiler number, and then add the boiler number to the reference there. Let's just do a spot check on number 5 here, and that looks 100% correct.
So Lenny, question. What if my maths is not too good, and in my head I count that 2 to 5 is actually 5 instances? How will I pick that up?
Correct. So my math is definitely sometimes not the greatest, or definitely my spelling, Vaughan, but 100%. So I know I need to create 5 plants, right, as a start. So a very common mistake that I would have probably made is say, okay, I know I need to create 5, 100%. Now, 2 to 5 is only 4 steps. So what it's going to do, and again, this is where the preview is so important, is if I press on this preview, it's going to actually show you maybe there's something wrong here. Because what it's going to say is after 5, I can't find the uniqueness anymore. And I'm going to start adding it as a copy of that uniqueness. So you'll notice it will just go and add a copy to the ones that it couldn't create and a uniqueness in that name. All right.
Nice.
Obviously, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to change it back to 4, and there we go. All right. Let's go and hit continue. And that is now going to create those guys in my model. And there we go. Plant 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go and deploy this out. Cool. Now, the Flow engine is obviously going to do this in the back end. It's busy backfilling. It's busy doing all the calculations. But let's see what's happening on the front end here. All right, so remember this one, Vaughan, we only had the one plant for that one instance that we've done.
That's it.
Let's refresh it.
Wow.
Without me having to even open that chart to go and configure it or to add any more columns or any more boilers, it realized that I've instantiated the 5 plants. It added in the boilers automatically, and it automatically extended my charting at the bottom here.
So now I can see, Lenny, why you speak or you preach about template first. This is brilliant.
Correct. And the nice thing about this is, you know, we have this capability to add limits. We have this capability to add heat mapping on these things. And it was quite a pain in the past to actually now go to your report, you know, open up the different components here, and you had to go through each and every one of them and add the limit and add the heat map. The nice thing about this is now I literally have to add that limit to one component, change the color to show me the limit exception. And I can also do the same on the heat map here. So add a measure color provider. When the steam production is low, I'm going to make it a little reddish color. And when the steam production is high, I'm going to make it a little blue color. So I'm doing it on one thing because I've linked it to the template, right? But when I refresh in the chart side, it will go and apply it to everything that I've configured based on the amount of boilers that's instantiated.
What's also cool here, Lenny, is you've effectively, there are 10 tags there, isn't that? So pressure and production for each of those 5 boilers that are unique. And because you use that model attribute, you've gone and grabbed and mapped the correct tag in the historian.
Correct. So let's have a look at that, Vaughan. Let's do a spot check just to make sure that I didn't screw anything up here. So let's open up the steam pressure here. And you'll notice in the retrieval here, I don't hard code it to the tag. I actually prefix it with whatever model attribute I want to use to go and do that. And I can do a sanity check, obviously, to see, oh, yes, the equipment model attribute is being replaced by 050. 050 will be replaced by that placeholder. And that is then the 050 tag that I've got in my story.
Brilliant.
All right, cool. Vaughan, you'll notice that obviously I've got one that's missing there. I also have a temperature tag.
That's okay, right. Then you can just open it 5 times and add it, can't you?
You might, but I'm definitely not going to do that. I'm just going to add it to my template. All right, so I'm quickly going to go and add a steam temperature here. Sorry, typing slow to make sure I don't do any spelling mistakes. And I'm going to change the retrieval here to be retrieved from a data source. And I'm going to use a tag just as a placeholder, right? So I'm going to take the temperature tag and I'm going to drag it here into the retrieval. All right, now I know I want to replace this first part with my model attribute, right? So that's 010, that's the one that I'm going to replace. So that guy, I'm literally just going to say, you know what, please use my model attribute. And the model attribute that I would like you to use in that replacement is my equipment model attribute. And that will then replace it as I go and instantiate it. All right, for a temperature, I probably want to do a maximum retrieval. So I'm going to do that. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to take that temperature, and I would like to know what is the maximum temperature for the day. I'm going to drag it to the daily icon. This is going to be my daily max of temperature. And one thing that I want to highlight here is that we've increased the retrieval methods on aggregated KPIs. So you'll notice that we added in a variance and a standard deviation to our secondary aggregation as well. Right, obviously I want to do that as a maximum to get the maximum of the day. Close this and let's release this guy. All right, now by releasing it, you'll notice that all of my models here in the plant got this little blue dot showing me that it's got an update, right? So I'm going to go and do an update on all of those. They will inherit the temperature KPI. There we go. And I'm going to go and deploy it out. Again, the flow engine in the backend will go and deploy it and do all of the changes, all right, and do the number crunching for me. Sorry, I just need to do it on that level there to deploy all of them. All right, now, what about this temperature guide? All I obviously have to do in my reporting is I need to go and add the temperature as well. But I'm not going to drag it individually from the guys here. I'm just going to go to my template, take the steam temperature and add it to my boiler here. Cool. Now if I refresh, I will have the temperature part of all 5 of them automatically added to my report.
Just like that.
100%. Cool. Now, very quickly, we've added in some other things that we can templatize. So we really try to make templates as complete as possible. So what I can also do is I can go and create templates of events, which is a big thing, which was definitely not available in version 5.3.5. So I can take an event, drag it in here, and I can go and create a downtime event. And I can also go and create a runtime event. Cool. Now, isn't downtime or runtime just the inverse of runtime, Vaughan?
Yes, it is, Lenny, but what happens when my downtime is made up of 3 different signals? Then I'm going to get out my Kano maps to work out the inverse of those 3 for my runtime, right?
All right, so hopefully I'm going to make your day. So let's open up the event. Right, I'm going to go to my packaging section here for the fillers, and I'm going to use my state event here to obviously create the triggers. All right, so I'm going to create a start trigger and an end trigger. I know my downtime starts when I'm in condition 0 and it ends when I'm in condition 10. Again, this guy here I would like to replace, right? So I would like to replace the state with my model attribute. All right, and I'm going to use that same equipment placeholder that I've created. Cool. Copy this guy out and just replace that guy there as well to dynamically do it for me. All right, and that's the first one done. Now, this is quite cool. What I can do now is if I open up the runtime, I can actually use another event to trigger this event. So I can use the downtime event and say when the downtime ends, start this guy, and when the downtime obviously starts, end it, right? So that's pretty much an inverse of that event that I've created. So let's release it. Let's create an instance of this in my plant here. Sorry, not the time now for my mice to die. All right, so let's go and instantiate this guy. Cool, again, I can use my equipment placeholders. I know that it is equipment 001. I only have the 1, so I'm just going to hard code it for now, Vaughan. I know that it is plant 01 as well.
But the same philosophy applies where you can use placeholders if you have
Correct,
multiple.
100%. I'm just going to do 1, and obviously this is filler number 01. Click on the preview, and there we go. It's going to create filler 1 with those guys. Continue, and there we go. Instantiated. Let's deploy it, and let's add it. I've created some predefined reporting here already for the events. So the downtime one, obviously, I'm going to link to my downtime report. And the runtime, I'm going to do to my runtime reports.
So yeah, you're adding normal model events. I think what's important to understand is that in some cases you could combine template entities or template events with model events if you so choose.
100%. All right, cool. So there we go. It created it, it did the replacement. And if I go back to my little dashboard here, let's just give it a refresh, go to the events. And in the event dashboard, you'll notice that this guy is now an exact inverse of the downtime. 100% worked out.
Very nice.
Cool. What we've also done, Vaughan, is we added in the capability to create events based on calendar configuration, right? So we've got a lot of people asking around sampling. You know, there's samples that take potentially, I don't know, 2 hours or every 3 hours, but at the end of the shift, how do you want to handle that? So sometimes it can be a little bit complex. And we didn't really add a nice way of doing this in the previous version. So when I create a sample event here, I can actually use my calendar to create some very cool configuration. So I'm going to use my production calendar here. I'm going to say I would like to create a sample every 3 hours, but I would like to reset it on the shift. Okay.
Okay. So if I have an 8-hour shift, I assume I'm going to have a 3-hour, and then a 2-hour
100%.
event. Is that right? Okay.
100%. So let's instantiate this guy. It doesn't have anything really to do. Sorry, I just dragged it into the wrong place. Let's just drag it there. All right, it doesn't have any settings, so you don't have to obviously use the model attributes. It makes your life simpler, but if it's a manual event, potentially you don't want to. And let's deploy this guy out. All right, let's refresh here. And, oh, I forgot to obviously add it to that report. So let's open up the sample report and just add this guy in there very quickly. All right, and let's refresh. There we go. 3 hour, as you mentioned, 8-hour shift. So the last one will be a 2-hour bucket and it will repeat itself, creating it. This is great now if you need to add samples into your flow system as well. Typically, stuff that we see from a quality perspective.
I can see why you say more config, less development, because this was possible in the past. Just you'd have to write some custom expressions to build in that logic. You've just done it with a few drags and drops.
And the nice thing about it is I can actually use the shift that I've configured in Flow. In the past, yeah, you had to kind of hard code your shift kind of information. And if you change it, you have to change your code. So 100% less config, and that's what we're aiming for. All right, we're running a bit almost out of time here. So the last few things that I just want to quickly mention is the fact that we've extended our extensibility. So we talk about the connectivity to Influx. All right, so you'll notice that I can now create a connection to an InfluxDB inside of my connections. I have already done so. So this is going to browse my Influx. All right, so we support Influx version 2 and up. So what you see here is the organization that's been created in Influx. And the second one is going to be the raw data set that's in the InfluxDB. Then it's they call it the measurements. And then a measurement can have a whole bunch of tags and fields that kind of create a unique name. All right, so we kind of try to our utmost best creating all of these different fields. And there we go, that's the raw data that's inside of Influx. So just to show you this inside of the actual Influx user space, this is Influx, this is my Telegraph bucket that I'm actually pushing it into. And if I explore the data in here, it's pretty much this exact same kind of look and feel that we went through, Vaughan, is giving you the opportunity to select your measurements, your tags, and then if there was any filters associated with that tag. And if I submit this query, it's that same raw query that we've got. A nice feature about Influx is that you can also switch to an editor where you can actually change the filters, you can change some of the things that's in the query. And we've went the exact same route. So what I'm going to do is I'm just quickly going to create a KPI for that. Drag it out here. And just to open it up to show you this, depending on the metric and the key that you did select, we will pre-populate that. But for the hardcore guys that actually want to go and write their own script, you can change it to the script editor. And we give you the script that we've pre-built, but you can go and change that script to your heart's content to whatever data you want to pull from that InfluxDB. All right. Now, you will notice that this is a minutely measurement that I've pulled in here. And you will notice, Vaughan, that I have created 2 calendars in this flow system. One is my normal production calendar, and the other one is a 1-minutely calendar. All right.
So do you need to tell me, Lenny, that minutely can actually be minutely?
Correct. So we decreased our refresh rates, or our actual rate that we will rerun aggregations and calculations. So in the past, previous versions, it was every 5 minutes. That was the fastest that we could go. We've increased that to 1 minute, Vaughan. So if I create a new calendar here, just to show you, let's call this my 2-minute calendar. If I open this up, you'll notice that now I've got the capability to select 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 4 minute, 5, 6 minute, 10, 12. So we increased the frequency of minutes. There was some customers that actually wanted aggregation every 3 minutes. So we just included those options from a ease of use capability. All right, I've added these guys as 1 minute. So you'll notice when I open this up, it will go and aggregate. And this time bucket here is every 1 minute. So this is Influx. Let's go to Flow and let's open up that InfluxDB there, dashboard there. And there we go. There is the 1 minutely aggregated data from Influx within a Flow dashboard.
Nice, Lenny. Thanks.
Cool. All right. So that is pretty much what I've got prepared for some of the new features. I hope you guys see the value in using those model attributes. It's something that we are very excited about. And hopefully we can make the creation of models very quick and very easy by utilizing those placeholders that we've got. All right, just on an enablement perspective, we always end up the conversation with just what's new in Flow. So the new video that we've added to our website is obviously the last conversation we had, which was in March. And that was where me and Vaughan discussed a little bit about OEE and TEAD, and why it's still a very important and very applicable metric to utilizing our plant environments, and how Flow potentially can help you to create those KPIs within the solution. All right, from a support perspective, obviously security is a big thing. So we do get a lot of questions currently on the support desk around, can I change the ports that Flow run on? Can I add a certificate to have a secure SSL connection if I want to use HTTPS to connect to my Flow dashboard? Definitely. All right, so there is, from the resources perspective, there is in our support website, there is a tech note or an article that will show you exactly how to change the ports that Flow utilize, not just for the internal communication, but also for the web service. And then obviously we do have a little bit of a tech note that will go through how to create a certificate, how to install the certificate, and to bind it to your Flow server ports to actually utilize HTTPS. And obviously for that, you need a certificate to achieve that. So that's what currently is kind of the hot topic on the support desk. All right, Vaughan, what can we expect in the next version?
Lenny, we'd like to give our listeners an opportunity to get a glimpse into where we're going. Obviously, 5.4.0 is coming out now, and we immediately start working on 5.4x. So we anticipate, as we explained in our previous conversation, we try and take inputs from our community in terms of what they like to see. We obviously look at our support tickets, and also just in terms of technology trends, and we get to marry all those requirements. So in terms of features, some of the themes or some of the things that are coming out are new notification services. We've seen an uptake in Telegram. I'm not sure if it had anything to do with Elon Musk, but definitely an uptake in Telegram, and Microsoft Teams is ubiquitous as well. So we're going to be including notification services to push out your Flow messages via those channels or notification servers. And then side-by-side event reporting. So as you've seen, we've done a lot of work with eventing. We've got some ideas to enhance the reporting. So this is for things like genealogy. If you have events that have common attributes where you're handing over materials, perhaps from one event to another, to be able to visualize those in a different chart that lends itself to that kind of process. And then from a usability perspective, we've also seen the importance of being able to refresh your triggers and attributes. Maybe you, instead of backfilling, you have a trigger that you know might be updated by your system retrospectively. And we want Flow to be able to detect that and automatically update those triggers and attributes.
Well,
as well.
Just on that, obviously for measures, we do that already with different refresh offsets. And if it's a SQL based, you can go and add like a modified timestamp to do that. We're just extending that capability now to triggers and attributes, right?
Yes, very nice. Thanks, Lenny. That's it. And then on the form side, some nice new stuff coming out there in how you capture what we call time slices. So where you have a measure value that has event context. Think about an hourly production number in which you are running different products, to be able to capture those in a nice visual way against each product. We're going to be doing that. And then rounding out the template, we enhancing the template forms themselves in Flow. And then just your general fixes, Lenny, which we anticipate, and also trying to keep up to date with technology. So we want to look at supporting Azure. In fact, we will be able to support the Azure Cloud Database, as well as AWS RDS for the Flow database itself. And on the integration side, to be able to get data and push data to AWS and Azure is also on the horizon. And then some nifty stuff we're bringing in with the real-time data source capability. So where you have a data source that has real-time data, think about your monitoring, your Windows monitoring. You might want to store that. And at the moment, you don't want to get a historian to do that, but you do want Flow to report on it from a KPI perspective. So we want to facilitate that, to allow you to store it just temporarily in Flow, give it enough time so that we can then contextualize that data and store the KPI for you.
So Vaughan, you're telling me that I can create a dashboard that's now potentially not just going to give me decision support on manufacturing data, but potentially also the hardware that is running on. So I can see my memory usage is increasing or my CPU is increasing. Obviously, Flow needs that data to be buffered to do the aggregations. And then after the aggregation, we will discard that buffer.
That's it, Lenny. That's why if we think back to the slide that Graham showed, Flow really is that platform, that manufacturing information platform. So anything that touches you in manufacturing, you can see it in Flow.
Great. Right, when Vaughan?
So yeah, Lenny, you've seen from our cycle that we try and keep it between 1 to 3 months for our regular patch type releases. Obviously, when we do a service pack, and when you get your hands on 5.4.0, you're going to see it's a big service pack. So that's why there's been a bit of a gap between the previous patch. But we plan to go back to our 1 to 3 month cycle for the next patches.
Perfect. All right. With that, sure, almost right on the hour. Graham, were there any Q&As that we can maybe just highlight that was asked?
Yeah, sure. So a couple of questions that have come through from system integrators. Obviously quite excited about the templatization capability and want to get their hands on this new version. So when are we releasing it, guys?
So Vaughan,
So Graham, I think we can release it right now to those who want to get their hands on it. What we are saying is that we're just crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the release for production. But if somebody would like to play around with it, as you saw, Lenny was running it live. You're welcome to reach out to us at support@flow-software.com or call us, and we can arrange a release candidate for you.
cool. And we're still earmarking kind of end of June, Vaughan, for the actual release.
Still in June, Lenny.
Cool. Perfect. All right.
One last question that I think we can just squeeze in quickly. A question about the InfluxDB data source. If you are using Telegraph already and you don't have an InfluxDB, can you get the data straight into Flow?
Right, so that will probably be handled a little bit with our real-time data storage engine. So yes, so that real-time data storage, we're going to buffer a bit. We are going to introduce a Telegraph collector, if I'm going to call it. So Telegraph, for the guys that don't know, InfluxDB use that quite a lot to collect data from multiple sources. So yes, our real-time data source engine will be able to buffer that data from Telegraph, and then obviously do the aggregations into Flow. So yes, that will be one of the collectors that we were bringing out, not just for the performance indicators for Windows, but also for Telegraph with our real-time data engine. Cool. Guys, I want to say thank you. You could have done a whole bunch of other stuff in this hour, but you choose to spend it with us. And for that, we are very grateful. And then for 3 months is actually not that far away. So we'll see you again for the next one, for the third quarterly release of the conversation. Thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon.